Alright, so what we're going to be looking in this lesson are the roles of the president. Alright, so the president is both head of state and the chief executive. The president is considered to be the head of state, and this means that the president represents the nation and performs the ceremonial roles that go on within the government. They visit with kings and queens, they visit with other heads of government, they go to ribbon cuttings, they go to all these different things, and these are very ceremonial concepts that don't really necessarily have anything to do with the day-to-day running of the government. However, with them being as the chief executive, the president executes the laws that are passed by Congress. This would be a role, so if we contrast that with head of state, this would be somebody who's the head of government, and that is what we would really consider the president to be in this as well. Alright, so they are supposed to execute the laws that are passed by Congress and make sure that those things are being implemented in the way that they're supposed to be, which is why the bureaucracy, which we'll talk about later on, is considered to be part of the executive branch. Alright, one of the things that the president has to do as the head of state and the head of government is to deliver a State of the Union address. So in January of each year, the president is required to deliver an annual report regarding the current state of the nation to Congress. Now, you are not required to give this as a speech, even though as a modern-day president you would be a fool not to take the media exposure. Thomas Jefferson actually never delivered a State of the Union address orally to Congress. He would write it down and mail it to them. But really now what the State of the Union address is used for, it's used as a way of stating the policy goals that you have for the coming year and the ways that you would like to see that stuff be accomplished. Alright, so let's look at some of the tools that the president has at his disposal. One of those tools is the executive order. An executive order are rules that are made by the president that have the force of law even though they have not been passed by Congress. Alright, this is an implied power of the Constitution. Executive orders are used for the following reasons: to enhance laws passed by Congress, to enforce the implementation of statutes and treaties, and to enforce provisions of the Constitution. So, when we look at these concepts, these are the only things that the president can do with their executive orders. They can't just all of a sudden declare that on Wednesdays everybody has to wear purple shirts. Alright, that is not the way that an executive order works. Alright, so an executive order, is, like we said, it enhances laws passed by Congress. So say there's something missing from that law, or there's some enforcement policy that's missing, the president can write an executive order to make sure that those things are enforced. Alright, to enforce the implementation of statutes and treaties. So, once again, if the things aren't being enforced, if there's some sort of loophole, then the president can try and close that through executive order. And then to enforce provisions of the Constitution. So if people aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, and it's, through that avenue, then the president can issue an executive order to try and force that into happening. Presidents may also remove executive officials. This is normally done if there's a dispute over policy. So a president can fire a cabinet official whenever they deem necessary. Alright. Other things that the president can do. They can grant a reprieve. A reprieve is a grantment of postponement of legal punishment. Okay? So say I'm about to be executed tomorrow. The president can grant a reprieve if new information has come up, and they can go, okay, let's not do this execution yet. Let's give them a little bit more time to gather more evidence. Okay? A pardon is a release from legal punishment. So if you are pardoned, so even if you've been convicted, you're serving jail time, the president can pardon you whenever they want to. Alright? And then amnesty. Amnesty is a group pardon. One of the biggest concepts of amnesty that we provided in this country was when Jimmy Carter provided amnesty to all those who deserted the country during the Vietnam War. Because if you desert your country during wartime, you never get to come back. But Jimmy Carter provided amnesty to those soldiers and allowed them to come back into the country. Alright. The president is a party leader. So when you look at that concept, the president is going to really kind of champion the positions of whatever party that they're a part of. Alright? One of the things that used to take place, and we're going to talk about how this goes away later on, and this still happens to a certain degree, but not nearly to the level that it used to happen to in the late 1800s, early 1900s, is that there's a system known as patronage. Patronage is the power to appoint those who supported the president during the election to political office. So say I gave some campaign donations, or I wrote some speeches, or I knocked on some doors, and I did those types of things. If the president then appointed me to a government position, that would, in response to that support, then that would be the concept of patronage. Alright? This can also be known as the spoils system, or is termed as the riding on the president's coattails. All right, and we think about it, the spoil system, it's the idea of to the victor goes the spoils. All right, other roles. The president is the chief legislator. The president plays the role of trying to influence the laws that will be passed by Congress. Once again, that does not mean that Congress is going to do everything that the president wants, because that very rarely, if ever, happens. But the president is going to try and influence what's happening in Congress, and they're going to provide ideas, and they're going to draft their own legislation, and then try and get legislators to sponsor that within Congress. So they're going to have an active role in trying to determine the type of laws that are passed throughout Congress. They're also the chief diplomat. This means that the president directs foreign policy and meets with foreign officials to implement these policies.